Good afternoon.
Hello, sir.
So here we are on Rule 15.
This is the last rule, is it
This
not?
is the last rule. Yep. Now, we won't make it through today. We'll probably just do a little bit of reading today. But nonetheless, we're on the last rule. So Rule 15, the fires approach the shadow, yet burn it not. The fire's sheath is completed. Let the magician chant the words that blend the fire and water. It's broken out into 4 subsections: the esoteric sense, the negation of the great illusion, a call to service, and the New Age groups and training. Beginning with the esoteric sense. We come now to the consideration of the last rule for magic. As we cast our minds back over this long series of instructions, certain basic lines of teaching stand out with exceptional clarity, casting lesser lines of instruction into the shade. Students would do well to remember that in the reading of any basic textbook, and this one is so regarded, a definite procedure should be adopted. The student should first of all read the textbook as a whole in order to grasp its outstanding points, its main lines of teaching, and the 3 or 4 propositions upon which its entire structure is founded. Having grasped these, he can then begin to deal with and to isolate those subsidiary points which serve to elucidate and clarify the main essentials. After that, he can successfully deal with the details. Students, therefore, would find it of interest to review these instructions and gather out of them the major points. Then they can proceed to fill in the secondary teachings and finally arrange the detailed data under the various heads which have emerged. This, when completed, would constitute a synopsis of the book and would fix the knowledge it contains firmly in the student's memory. One of the main teachings which can be seen most clearly in all instructions of a truly esoteric character concerns the attitude of the student of the occult. He is supposed to be dealing with things subjective and esoteric. He aims to be a worker in white magic. As such, he must assume and consistently hold the position of the observer, detached from the mechanism of observation and contact. He must recognize himself as essentially a spiritual entity, different in nature, objectives and methods of working from the bodies which he considers it wise to occupy temporarily and to employ. He must realize his unity and lines of contact with all similar workers and thus arrive at a conscious awareness of his position in the spiritual hierarchy of beings. So much misinformation has been spread abroad and so much emphasis has been unwisely laid upon status and position in the so-called hierarchy of souls that sane and balanced disciples now seek to turn their thoughts elsewhere and to eliminate as far as may be all thought of grades and spheres of activity. It is possible in the swing of the pendulum to swing too far in the opposite direction and to discount these stages of activity. Do not misunderstand me, however. I do not suggest that an attempt be made to place people and to decide where they stand upon the evolutionary ladder. This has been most foolishly done in the past, with much dishonor to the subject, so much so that in the minds of the public, the whole matter has fallen into disrepute. If these stages are regarded sanely for what they are, states of extended consciousness and grades of responsibility, then the danger of personality reaction to the terms accepted, disciple, initiate, adept, master would be negligible and much trouble would be eliminated. It must ever be remembered that individual status is rigidly kept to oneself, and the point of evolution, which may be truthfully recognized as laying ahead of that of the average citizen, will be demonstrated by a life of active, unselfish service and by the manifestation of an illumined vision, which is ahead of the racial idea. In the gathering together in the world at this time of the new group of world workers, true caution must be preserved. Each worker is responsible for himself and his service and for no one else. It is wise to gauge and approximate the evolutionary status not upon claims made, but upon work accomplished and the love and wisdom shown. Judgment should be based upon an evidenced knowledge of the plan as it works out in the wise formulation of the next step ahead for the human race. Upon a manifested esoteric sense, and upon an influence or an auric power, which is wide, constructive, and inclusive. You ask me to define more clearly what I mean by the words esoteric sense. I mean essentially the power to live and to function subjectively, to possess a constant inner contact with the soul and the world in which it is found. And this must work out subjectively through love, actively shown, through wisdom, steadily outpoured, and through that capacity to include and to identify oneself with all that breathes and feels, which is the outstanding characteristic of all truly functioning sons of God. I mean, therefore, an interiorly held attitude of mind which can orient itself at will in any direction. It can govern and control the emotional sensitiveness not only of the disciple himself, but of all whom he may contact. By the strength of his silent thought, he can bring light and peace to all. Through that mental power, he can tune in on the world thought and upon the realm of ideas, and can discriminate between and choose those mental agencies and those concepts which will enable him, as a worker under the plan, to influence his environment and to clothe the new ideals in that thought matter which will enable them to be more easily recognized in the world of ordinary everyday thinking and living. This attitude of mind will enable the disciple also to orient himself to the world of souls, and in that high place of inspiration and of light, discover his fellow workers, communicate with them, and in union with them, collaborate in the working out of divine intentions. This esoteric sense is the main need of the aspirant at this time of the world history. Until aspirants have somewhat grasped it and can use it, they can never form part of the new group. They can never work as white magicians, and these instructions will remain for them theoretical and mainly intellectual instead of being practical and effective. To cultivate this inner esoteric sense, meditation is needed, and continuous meditation in the early stages of development. But as time elapses and a man grows spiritually, this daily meditation will perforce give way to a steady spiritual orientation, and then meditation as now understood and needed will no longer be required. Detachment between a man and his usable forms will be so complete that he will live ever in the seat of the observer, and from that point an attitude will direct the activities of the mind and of the emotions and of the energies which make physical expression possible and useful. The first stage in this development and culture of the esoteric sense consists in the holding of the attitude of constant detached observation. The new group of world workers might well be regarded in its outer ranks as a trained body of organized observers. I would divide the group into 3 divisions, and I do so in order that aspirants and chelas all over the world may be guided in their knowledge as to where they stand individually, and may, in sincerity and truth, begin to work with intelligence. They can be thus aided to place themselves. First, there are the organized observers. These aspirants are learning to do 2 things. They are learning to practice that detachment, which will enable them to live as souls in the world of daily affairs and to understand the real significance of the words, to work without attachment. They are also, secondly, those students of world affairs in one or other of the 7 departments earlier referred to when I brought the new group to the attention of the world. They are studying the signs of the times. They investigate the great drama of history in order to discover its main trend, and so express to the ordinary academic world and to the thinkers of the race what they see and understand. Running all through human history is a triple thread, and in the interplay of these 3 threads, the story of evolution is to be found. One thread guides the thoughts of man as he deals with the development of the form aspect, with the racial trends, and it shows how undeviatingly the forms of races, of countries, and of fauna and flora of our planetary life have kept pace with the needs of the slowly emerging sons of God. The second thread leads us to an understanding of the growth of consciousness and indicates emergence from the instinctual stage into that of intellectual awareness, and on to that intuitional illumination, which is the present goal of consciousness. The third thread concerns the plan itself, and here we enter the realm of the truly unknown. What the plan is and what the goal is as yet totally unrealized except by the highest adept and the most exalted of the sons of God. Until the illumined mind and the power of intuitional response are developed in the human family, it is not possible for us to grasp the basic concepts which are to be found in the mind of God himself. Until the highest point of the Mount of Initiation has been climbed, it is not possible to vision the promised land as it is. Until the limitations, the necessary limitations, of the three worlds have been surmounted and man can function as a free soul in the spiritual kingdom, that which lies beyond the kingdom must remain hid to man just as much as the human state of being and awareness remains a sealed book to the animal. This is a salutary and needed lesson which all disciples should grasp. But observers of times and seasons can make rapid progress in intuitional growth if they preserve in their meditation, train their intellects, and endeavor always to think in terms of universals. Let them look at the historical retrospect as part of the emerging preparation which will inaugurate the future. Let them take heart of grace as they recognize the fact that the kingdom of souls is steadily becoming a physical plane phenomenon. Do I speak paradoxically? And will be known eventually as a kingdom of nature and considered so by the scientists before 2 centuries have passed away. These organized observers form the outer circle of the new group, and their keynote is synthesis, the elimination of non-essentials, and the organizing of human knowledge. Working in the many fields of human awareness, they are distinguished by a non-sectarian spirit, and by an ability to deal with foundational essentials and to link up varying departments of human investigation into one organized and unified whole. Second, the next group in the new group of world workers is that of the telepathic communicators. These are much fewer in number and are distinguished by their relatively close interrelation with each other. They are primarily a linking or a bridging group. They are gathered out of the more exoteric circle of the organized observers, but have a wider scope of service than they have, for they work in a more truly esoteric manner. They are in touch with each other and with the organized observers, but they are likewise in touch with the group of men and women who stand at the very center or heart of the world group. Their work is threefold and very difficult. Steadily, they have to cultivate the detachment which characterizes the soul, which knows itself. Steadily, they take the knowledge and information accumulated by the organized observers and adapt it to the need of the world and give out the teaching. The work effectively, but always from behind the scenes. And though they may be known in the world in this early stage of the work of the new group, and though they may be therefore recognized as teachers, writers, and workers, later they will recede more and more into the background and will work through the outer circle. They will inspire them and will place increasing responsibility upon their shoulders. They will nurture the growth of telepathic interplay in the world and thus weave those strands which will eventually bridge the present gap between the seen and the unseen, and so make the new world possible, a world in which death as we know it will be abolished and a trained universal continuity of consciousness be established. That is why the emphasis is laid in training the members of this group in the new group upon telepathic sensitivity. The members of this second circle of workers are taught to develop sensitiveness in 3 directions: to the thoughts of men in physical incarnation, to the minds of those who have passed over and who are still in mind bodies, And thirdly, to the group of spiritual beings who stand as the custodians of the evolutionary process and through whose hands the three threads of developing life steadily pass. Their task is exceedingly hard, far harder than that of the first group, and harder even than that of the last, for they lack as yet certain powers and needed experience. Their center of consciousness is the intuition and not that of the synthesizing intellect, and their state of awareness is wide and inclusive. They therefore can suffer more than the majority, and few there are who are not at this stage too sensitive for their own comfort and too responsive to vibrations emanating from the form aspect in all three worlds. Their state of detachment is not yet complete. They bridge and therefore support infinite problems and respond to world pain. They see, if I may so express it, too much, for theirs is not yet the privilege of visioning with clarity the goal that lies 200 years ahead. They sense the present need. They are responsive to the new tide of spiritual force which is flowing in. They carry the weight of humanity on their shoulders, and because they are somewhat coordinated, they live in all three worlds at once, and this few can do. They are aware of the urgency of the present opportunity and also of the apathy of the many, and for these reasons, they work under terrific pressure. Third, the innermost group of all is that of the members of the hierarchy itself. I care not the least whether these liberated souls are recognized as elder brethren of the race, as masters of wisdom, as the cloud of witnesses, as the Christ and his church, as supermen, or under any terms which the inherited tendencies of humanity and tradition may choose to call them. They themselves care less. The petty quarrels as to their personalities and names and status matter not at all. They are the intelligent forces of the planet. They express, because of their state of expanded consciousness, the mind of God. They embody the intelligent principle, immutable and unchanging, and through them flows the energy which we call the will of God, for lack of better understanding. They know far more of the plan than do the two outer circles of the new group of world workers, for they say clearly just what is the next step, which planetary evolution will guide the race to take during the next 200 years. They do not occupy themselves with idle speculations as to the ultimate goal at the close of world age. This may surprise you in the view of the many speculations of the uninitiate, but so it is. They know that there is a time and a season for all things, and looking ahead and comprehending intuitively the goal for all kingdoms in the immediate future, all their united effort is bent to one end: the cultivating of the intuitional telepathic responsiveness of the communicators who bridge the gap between them and the physical world. These latter, in their turn, seek to employ the observers, knowers, communicators, and observers, all working in a close, if oft times unrealized unity, and all responsive according to their degree to the impulsion of the mind and will of the Logos, the solar deity. Beyond this triple group stand the thrones, principalities, and powers with whom we need not concern ourselves. On the other side stands humanity torn by the disasters of the past world war, bewildered by the social, religious, and economic pressure of the present, sensitive and responsive to the influences and energies pouring in on the new tide of the Aquarian age, unable to understand and explain, and conscious only of a longing for liberty of thought and of physical condition, snatching at every chance to gain knowledge, and so providing a fertile field wherein this new group can work. We have seen that the objective of all inner training is to develop the esoteric sense and to unfold that inner sensitive awareness which will enable a man to function not only as a son of God in physical incarnation, but as one who also possesses that continuity of consciousness, which will enable him to be interiorly awake as well as exteriorly active. This is accomplished through developing the power to be a trained observer. I commend these words to all aspirants. It is persistence in the attitude of right observation that brings about detachment from form, a subsequent power to use form at will, and with the end in view of furthering hierarchical plans and consequent usefulness to humanity. When this power to observe has been somewhat brought about, we then have the aspirant joining that intermediate group of trained communicators who stand between the aforementioned groups, the exoteric groups, and the group of spiritual workers on the subjective plane, interpreting the one to the other. It is well to remember that even the members of the hierarchy profit by the opinions and advice of those disinterested disciples who can be trusted to rightly recognize and interpret the need of the hour. When this stage has been reached and a man is in conscious touch with a plan, then true magical work can begin. Men and women who are beginning to live as souls can undertake the magical work of the new age and can inaugurate those changes and that rebuilding which will bring about the manifestation of the new heavens and the new earth, to which all the scriptures of the world bear eloquent testimony. They can then work with forces of etheric matter and so bring into being those physical plane creations and organizations which will more adequately embody the life of God in the Aquarian age, which is now upon us. It is to this stage that Rule 15 refers. These words mark the consummation of the magical work and are equally true of the magical work of a solar logos, of a planetary logos, of an incarnating soul, or of that advanced human being who is learnt to work as a white magician under the plan of the Great White Lodge. It, of course, refers to the work of those who through intellectual achievement have learnt to work as magicians, but on what is called the black side, for the same rules of magical work hold good for both groups, though the motivating impulse differs. But with the work of the black magicians, we must not to do. We have not to do. But with the work of the black magicians, we have not to do. That which they do is powerful in transient effect, using the word transient in its cyclic sense. But these effects must in due time cease and be subordinated to the claims and the work of the bringers of light and of life. The shadow stage is the dim and uncertain period which is found prior to dense and concrete manifestation. It does not here refer to the shadow as the counterpart in physical manifestation of the soul. It refers to one of the intermediate stages in the creative process. It is technically called the stage of the waxing and the waning of the nebulae. And this stage precedes the appearance of the more stabilized and relatively static exoteric form. In the formation of a solar system, this is recognized as a preliminary period and can be seen going on in the starry heavens. It indicates the stage wherein the great magician is only in process of carrying forward his work. He has not yet finally chanted those mystic words or those spiritual sounds which will produce concretion and the tangible appearance of form. The secret doctrine refers to the three fires, and these are of ancient usage. The Vishnu Purana gives these fires exactly the same nomenclature as does Blavatsky, who borrowed the terms from the ancient scripture. Electric fire, solar fire, and fire by friction, when brought into conjunction, produce the manifested macrocosm and microcosm, and to this conjunction my earlier treatise on cosmic fire referred. These fires are esoterically one fire, but this fire produces, according to the witnessing consciousness itself at varying stages of evolutionary development, the effect of differentiated fiery essence. This fiery essence can be known as life itself, or as the self shining light, or it can be known as the active form inherent in the one substance which underlies all phenomena. In this final rule for magic, the fires which are considered are those of matter itself, which approach the shadow and, as the old commentary symbolically expresses it, rise up from the second darkness at the call of the spirit of light, and meet in their appointed place that which will absorb them and raise them to the fiery point from whence the fires of living light and radiant life have come. So that closes the esoteric sense. We'll move into the negation of the great illusion. Probably conclude there for the day. The negation of the great illusion. The phrase in Rule 15, which says that blend the fire and water, as reference to the effect produced at the point of condensation, after the great words bringing about that effect have been pronounced. This rule is almost incapable of explanation, and it is not permitted to me to give to you the words that affect this process. Only some hints may be given which will serve to encourage the true aspirant to think, and may, alas, only irritate the casual thinker who seeks easy and quick methods and formulas through which to work. Heat and moisture are present in the production of all forms of life, but the great mystery, and almost the final mystery to be explained to the adept, is how the merging of three fires can produce moisture or the watery element. This problem and this phenomenon constitute the basis of the great illusion, to which the ancient books refer. Through the agency of the combination, the enveloping Maya is produced. There is in reality no such thing as water. The watery sphere, the astral plane, is, could you but realize it, an illusory effect and has no real existence. Yet in time and space, and to the understanding of the witnessing consciousness, it is more real that which it hides and conceals. I cannot make this clearer in words. It is only possible to suggest to the intelligent student that the light of his soul, reflected in his mind, and the energy of form, as expressed in his etheric body, are for him, in the realm of temporary duality, his two basic realities. The watery nature of his astral experience, in which these two aspects of divinity seem, again illusion to be noted, be it noted, to meet and work, is but a glamorous phenomenon, and in an occult sense is not based on fact. Any true aspirant knows that his spiritual progress can be gauged in terms of his freedom from this illusion, and of his release into the clear air and pure light of his spiritual consciousness. In its consciousness, the animal kingdom works with the second of these two basic realities. And for it, the life of the etheric body and the force which governs the animal or material nature are the prime expression of truth. Yet the animal is beginning to sense dimly the world of illusion and possesses certain psychic powers and senses which recognize yet fail to interpret the astral plane. The veil of illusion is beginning to fall before the eyes of the animal, but it knows it not. The human being has wandered for ages in the world of illusion, for it is of his own creating. Yet man, in his turn, from the standpoint of consciousness, has contact with the body, Yet man, in his turn, from the standpoint of consciousness, has contact with both the realities and learns little by little to dissipate the illusion by the steady growth of the radiant light of the soul. May I pause here to remind you that duality is only a stage on the evolutionary arc, leading eventually to the realization of unity. The veil of illusion resembles the moment before dawn when the world of familiar things is seen through the fogs and the streamers of mist which veil the world form and also veil the rising sun. Then we have that half-time, that mysterious and vague period when the real is hidden by the unreal. Then we have that weird and distorted condition when forms are not seen as they truly are, but lose their shape and color and perspective. True vision is then impossible. The astral stage and the vast cycle of time in which the great illusion holds sway can therefore be judged, from the above symbolic approach, to be but temporary and transient. It is not the stage of a definitely divine manifestation. It is not the stage of pure undimmed awareness. It is not the stage of the perfected work. It is that period of time wherein the half-gods walk. It is the time wherein truth is only dimly sensed, the vision only vaguely and occasionally seen. It is the stage of the half-realized plan, and when one works on partial knowledge, difficulty and mistakes are bound to supervene. It is also the stage of distortion and of constant mutability. Whilst it is in evidence, we have the apparently ceaseless pulling hither and thither by forces, working blindly and seemingly without purpose. As far as humanity is concerned, it is the time wherein man is enveloped in mist and fog, and lost in the miasmas arising out of the ground, symbol of the foundational nature of the animal kingdom. Yet at times the stage is seen to be unreal as the dawning light in the spirit of the spiritual consciousness pierces through the surrounding darkness. It is the interlude between the dominance of the animal consciousness and that of the spiritual, and this interlude of astral illusion is only known in the human family. There is no astral plane except in the consciousness of the fourth kingdom in nature, for man is under illusion, in a sense different to the conscious awareness of any other kingdom, subhuman or superhuman. I despair in making my meaning clear. How can one who is subject to the illusions of the senses, as are all human creatures, conceive of the state of consciousness of those who have freed themselves from the illusions of the astral plane, or realize the state of awareness of those forms of life which have not yet developed astral consciousness? It is the dual nature of the mind which causes this illusion. For the mind of man presents to him the keys of the kingdom of heaven, or locks upon him the door of entrance to the world of spiritual realities. It is the concretizing, unprincipled mind which brings about all the troubles of humanity. It is the sense of I-ness and the spirit of separative individuality which has brought humanity to its present condition, and yet even that is a part of the great developing process. It is the consciousness of duality and the subjectively realized and synchronously acknowledged sense of I am God and I am form, which has plunged mankind into the great illusion. Yet it is this very illusion which renders up to man eventually the secret password into the kingdom of God and brings about his release. It is this Maya itself which serves to guide him into truth and knowledge. It is on the plane of the astral that the heresy of separateness has to be overcome. And it is on the field of Kurukshetra that the individual aspiring Arjuna and the cosmic Arjuna learn the lesson that the knower and the known are one. The secret science of the master of the wisdom is the secret of how to dissipate the fogs and mist and darkness and gloom which are produced by the union of the fires in the early stages. The secret of the master is the discovery that there is no astral plane. He finds that the astral plane is a figment of the imagination and has been created through the uncontrolled use of the creative imagination and the misuse of the magical powers. The work of the hierarchy is primarily to bring to an end the shadows and to dispel the moisture. The aim of the masters is to let in the light of the soul and to show that spirit and matter are the two realities which constitute the units, and that it is only in time and in space and through the cyclic misuse of the magical and psychic powers that the astral plane of the great illusion has come into being and is now so real a thing. It is so real a thing that it is, in a certain sense, more real to man than the kingdom of light and the kingdom of form. In one most interesting sense, it is true that because the human being is a soul, and because the light of the soul is found within him and is gradually growing into fuller radiance, this itself produces the illusion. Because of this illusion, the magical work has been carried forward along wrong lines and has been based on wrong motives and fitted into a scheme which is stronger than the average worker. For the whole force of the world illusion is against all the efforts of the beginner in white magic. The rules therefore end with the statement that the magician chants the words that blend the fire and water, but these are the rules for the aspirant. The rules for initiates of a paralleling kind end with the words, let the initiate sound the note that unifies the fires. This is significant and of much encouragement to the beginner in the magical work. He is still perforce working on the astral plane, and he cannot possibly avoid so doing for much time. The mark of growth for him is the steady withdrawal of his consciousness from that plane, and his attainment of mental poise and of mental awareness, followed by creative work on the mental plane. There is an interesting and ancient proclamation found in the archives of the adepts, which covers some of the stages in the magical work, couched, of course, in symbolic form. Lost my cursor there. Let the magician stand within the great world sea. Let him immerse himself in water, and there let him stand his ground. Let him look down into the watery depths. Nothing is seen in form correct. Nothing appears but water. Beneath his feet it moves, around him and above his head. He cannot speak, he cannot see. Truth disappears in water. Let the magician stand within the stream. Around him water flows. His feet stand firm on land and rock, but all the forms he sees are lost in the gray immensity of mist. The water is around his neck, but feet on rock and head in air, he maketh progress. All is distortion still. He knows he stands, but where to go and how to go he knows not, nor understands. He sounds the words of magic, but muffled, dim, and lost, the mist returns them to him, and no true note sounds forth. Around him are the many sounds of many forms, which swallow up his sound. Let the magician stand in watery mist, free of the running stream. Some outlines dim appear. He sees a little distance on the path. Flickers of light break through the clouds of mist and fog. He hears his voice, its note is clearer and more true. The forms of other pilgrims can be seen. Behind him is the sea. Beneath his feet is seen the stream. Around him mist and fog. Above his head no sky is seen or sun. Let the magician stand on higher ground, but in the rain. The drops pour down upon him. The thunder breaks. The lightning flashes in the sky. But as the rain pours down, it dissipates the mist. It washes clean the form and clears the atmosphere. Thus forms are seen and sounds are heard, though dim as yet, for loud the thunder roars and heavy is the sound of failing rain. But now the sky is seen. The sun breaks forth, and in between the drifting clouds, expanses of the blue of heaven cheer the tired eyes of the disciple. Let the magician stand upon the mountaintop. Beneath him, in the valleys and the plains, water and streams and clouds are seen. Above him is the blue of heaven, the radiance of the rising sun, the pureness of the mountain air. Each sound is clear. The silence speaks with sound. Then come the highly significant phrases, which give the picture of the consummation. Let the magician stand within the sun, looking from thence upon the ball of earth. From that high point of peace, serene, let him sound forth the words that will create the forms, build the worlds and universes, and give his life to that which he has made. Let him project the forms created on the mountaintop in such a way that they can cleave the clouds which circle round the ball of earth and carry light and power. These shall dispel the veils of forms which hide the true abode of earth from the eye of the beholder. Such is the end of the magical work. It involves the discovery that the astral plane and the astral light, so called, are but the cinematographs created by man himself. What man has created, he can also destroy. More as to the magical work, I may not at this time give. The words that blend may not under any circumstances be given except under the oath of secrecy, which governs automatically the pledged disciple. These oaths are given to no man, but are rendered by the aspirant to his own soul when that soul has conveyed to him the words. He finds them for himself as the result of tireless effort and endeavor. He knows that these formulas are the prerogative of all souls and can only be known and safely used by those who have realized the self as one. He therefore pledges himself never to reveal these words to anyone who is not functioning as a soul or who is wandering blinded in the veil of illusion. From this automatic response to knowledge by the knowers of the race, the hierarchy of adepts has gathered its personnel. And that concludes the negation of the great illusion. And that's where I think we'll pause for the week.
Okay.
Any commentary you want to make about what we just read?
And what do you got? That was
Well, it was certainly a good encapsulation of what to expect along the path, I guess.
right. It was clear. I don't know that there's much to talk about. To be
No,
honest, I'm at a
No.
loss.
But he did open it up with kind of now here we are in the final chapter, and made a good note to mention, I think, is that we look at this as a manual, so to speak, as a text. It's not a pick it up and read it once type of thing and put it down. It seems that once we've read it, there will probably be points we'll want to come back to and elaborate in more detail to gain a clearer understanding. So just some food for thought there for folks that are reading through this. It's not like a daytime novel you read and put down when you're done. It's you read it, understand the foundation, dig back in through the details to gain more clarity, and then essentially live by it. And that's all I've got to say.
He does allude to the high places that are available, after the work, after we put some work in. So, yeah, I don't know, man. There's a lot of there was a lot more hidden talk. I want to say
Yeah.
like a
Well, and there is no astral plane. It's only that by which we have created. So
as he was building our esoteric sense here as we were reading this, because it was really spoken in an esoteric sense, I should say. Right? Yeah. All right, man.
well, good stuff. Plenty to ponder on.
We got two
got
sections
Two
left,
sections
right?
ago. Looks like this next one is a little bit hefty in length, but we'll see. But yeah, we'll pick up a call to service next time and see where we get.
All right, that sounds good. I'll go ahead and we'll get this out.
Sounds good. See everyone next time.
All right, buddy.